Hey, hi. First thing first, be safe, be at home. Uh, Today, second lockdown has been declared in Bangalore, and one of the quarantine zone is hardly 20 meter from here. So, stay at home, not because it is near my house, but stay at your home and be safe. Um, So today I'm going to talk about how did we reach up to DevOps, okay? And not to brag about, but I have taken multiple sessions for the PMs and the higher management on how do we deal with DevOps in a project. Okay, not the technical part of it. Obviously, when we are talking with management, it is like that. But what I have heard mostly is this, that yeah, we have done it earlier 7 8 years back also. We just didn't used to call it as DevOps. We never called it DevOps, but we have done all these things. This often I get to hear when I am in the 1/4 of my session, or 1/3 of my session. These things comes up. So let's talk about this. That how did we reach here? Okay, and again, this is my personal experience. So if I talk about my first project, I remember we used to take the code from VSS, I guess, yeah, and we used to check out the code, write our piece of code, and then commit it back. Okay, but before committing, the idea was that we will have to build the whole code, everything, and then we will commit it. We'll just not check our code. We'll have to build the whole code. The whole code base we'll have to build before we commit even one single file. This was just to maintain the sanity that when we commit, builds are not broken. That is not something which is new, okay, because of DevOps or something. This was the code sanity, or the sanity practice for quite a long time. And then when I moved to another project, we had a centralized team uh, which used to use Jenkins, or I don't know what tool, but I guess it was Jenkins. But they used to be the centralized team. So whenever we used to commit the code, uh, it was fine. You need to build your piece of code only, your project only, and you commit it. You need to ensure that your project is building properly. It was a huge project in which you have a lot of projects in that, lot of small projects. So you just need to ensure that your project is working fine and you commit. And if there's something happening, the centralized team will let you know what happens. But this was somewhere around 2010. But before that, I remember somewhere around 2008 or 2009, I have integrated Jenkins with NetBeans because I used to code on NetBeans. NetBeans was my personal favorite IDE. And I integrated Jenkins in that. So obviously I had to install Jenkins and integrate it. And then I used to write code and then build it from there, and it used to get built in Jenkins. So that was at that time little fascinating. But yeah, I have seen that thing working. Post that, I moved to a team where we had one centralized Jenkins which was given to us. When I say given to us, is that when we write our code, we commit, we need to check it on that Jenkins whether the whole build process is working fine or not. If it is working fine, then only you can go home. Else you'll have to stay back, fix your code commit, and then you go. Okay. So what I'm trying to derive is that the practices were there, but there was a eventual, you know, improvements in the type of automation we were doing. Post that, I remember, you know, we I was working in a team where that particular team had no Jenkins, nothing, and it was a third party. So what they used to do, they used to give us their WAL files, and the deployment was in our territory. So we used to take that WAL file and deploy it in the cluster, and it was a clustered setup. uh, Production staging was clustered. Obviously the QA was not clustered, so we used to deploy in QA, UAT, the staging, and in the production. So in all three places, the idea was that they would give us a WAL file and we would pull it and deploy it. So we have written a very elaborated JRuby code which used to do all these things. I could use Jenkins there, but the system was in such a way that using Jenkins was not so feasible at that point of time. So we wrote some scripts which used to run on a system on every 15 minutes and things like that. It will pull and execute. I could have done it in using Jenkins, I agree, but we had to do a lot of things. It was so much of configuration that we had to read a whole config file depending on various factors, and then we need to take it and deploy. So it was not a straightforward configuration. We had to do a lot of steps before deploying. So that's why, that was also another reason at that time, somewhere around 2013, Jenkins didn't have pipelines. It was simple Jenkins configuration. Pipeline as a code was not the concept at that point of time. So we used to do that. Then eventually, post that, I worked into various COEs, so it was not a project kind of scenario. But when I last worked, it was a mega project on which I have done DevOps. So they had some 100 around microservices, 250 plus Spark jobs to be deployed in EMR and things like that. It was a mega project. So the whole system was designed and done in a different way. So and there we use the pipelines. So the way we used to do the automation, it evolved during this period of time. We used to write scripts, we used to do a few things manually. Those things started automating. Nowadays, though, you have pipelines integrated with your code repository. GitHub has actions, Bitbucket has pipelines, GitLab also has pipelines, I guess. So the moment you commit the code, they take the action, do the build and deploy. So everybody is coming up with this concept of auto deployment. So why we are calling it DevOps today, and while the automation was there for quite some time, it was there in a different format. I am not the only person who did it. There are various people who have, better and more sophisticated automation even 10 years back. Okay, they probably didn't have the infrastructure as a code at that point of time, but they had enough capability to build and deploy. They used to build using probably Ant and CMake and things like that, but they had all kind of processes in place, automations in place, which used to build and deploy. So what difference it makes when we do it today is the question. Number one is that from the automation perspective, the IAC, infrastructure as a code, is a concept which is recently launched in the market from the time we have the public cloud in place. Right. So as long as we had the public cloud, we had this infrastructure as a code concept where you write a code and it spawns your infrastructure accordingly. This facility was not there. I agree. It came with the cloud. But now, let's understand what exactly is DevOps and why it is. So we will start with my pattern of why, what and how. So let's understand why. That is the first thing. So to answer why, there are 3 points: higher speed, better quality, and you need to cut the overheads. If you can do these 3 things, you should do DevOps, and the target of DevOps should be these 3 things. Why suddenly it started picking up? Not because it was so badly needed suddenly. It had a link. The link is Agile. When we do Scrum in Agile or Kanban in Agile, we need continuous development, which triggers continuous integration, which triggers continuous delivery and deployment. Okay, so it more and more we started doing agile people started feeling that without the presence of automation we cannot do agile properly, and that's where DevOps started picking up that we need it. Okay, and to do what? To do exactly what agile was doing, to increase the speed, to reduce the overhead, and to improve the quality. These three things, basic business need, this is what was required. Now what happened is we all focused on automation. That how do we do it? We start automating. We start build automation, unit test execution automation, deployment automation, functional test automation, integration test automation, infrastructure automation, code promotion automation. You name it, all the automations are available except the code automation. The day code automation comes in, we are almost done. We understood what is why. Now let's understand what is required. Okay, you understood that automation is doing a lot. That is not all what DevOps is all about. Okay, if you want these things to be automated, the question is who will do the automation and who will use it. Obviously your development team is supposed to use it. Okay, so they need to be capable of doing these things. So suddenly this started coming up that these are the ops activities, right? And you are expecting a developer to do operations. This started, the boundaries started overlapping. That is where they started telling that we need to break the silos. A development guy should know how to do the operations work as well. In theory it sounds good, in practical it is little difficult. Okay, but the idea is the developer should be able to deploy his code in various environments. He should be able to do it. He should have the capability. He should be enabled at least to get these things done. Then we need to understand the another concept which came is that you own your thing. You write your code. You do not say that it is working in my laptop, and if it is not working in dev environment, I am not responsible. You are responsible because it is your code. No matter in which environment it is not working, it is you who is responsible. But again, the question comes, if it is working on my laptop, why it is not working in that environment? And that is where little bit upscaling is required. I will talk about what kind of upscaling. The problem is, so this is the part of the what, that silos should be broken up. You own your things and you should know how to do the ops part. The question is how. Are you expecting a developer who knows operations, who knows cloud, who knows where to look into everything, probably who knows all the Linux commands? If you are looking for something like that, you can get that, but not much. Okay, you won't get this kind of engineer all over. It is difficult to get this kind of engineers. It's not impossible, but it is difficult. You will not be able to build a scalable team if you have this kind of expectation. And it is not about what. Always remember, it is never about what, it is always about why. Why we want to do it? Speed, quality, overhead. Question is, how do we solve that what? And that is answered by how. Okay, so let's talk into the how. There's two ways. One, either you train all your developers to do the ops work. Other, you support them with the ops team. The moment you support them with the ops team, again you have a dev team and an ops team. So what's the point? It's again back to the old model. If you have an ops team in your team and they are doing your build and deployments, if they are doing your builds and deployments, then you are not doing DevOps. You are just doing previous generations ops and you're being happy that you're doing it. So that is not DevOps. But then how? Should I train my all the developers and make them costly resource instead of having an ops team which is lower in cost? Why should I do this transformation and take cost? Because Reducing cost is also one thing in business. So training them, converting them, upskilling them is not such a great idea. If not, then what should be done? You need to have ops team because that is their expertise. But this time the ops team needs to be a little different. Okay, the ops team, if you start saying that the application is not working in the QA environment and they raise a ticket against dev team and dev need to come and look into it, then it is again ops and dev. It is not DevOps. So when I say, you need to understand this, that if the silos is to be broken, it is to be broken from both the sides. Your development team need to be upgraded a bit and your operations team needs to be upgraded a bit. Okay, now you need to have, if you are looking for a DevOps engineer, he should have an application background at least and operations expertise. Okay, similarly your dev team should have application expertise and operations knowledge. Okay, he should not be stuck saying that if it is not working in dev environment while it is working in my laptop, I don't know, something is wrong in that environment. If this is the attitude, it is not DevOps. DevOps is also about culture. I'm sorry I didn't add it in the what part, but this is very important to have the culture right. You cannot behave like that this is not my job, that is not your job. So your engineers, the ops engineers, should have the capability to predict, understand and collaborate with the dev team to suggest them that what you are doing right, what you are doing wrong. Okay, you should do it like this or not, because the infrastructure is like this and it will help you doing it like this and blah blah blah. So they have that blend with the development team, and your development team should have the blend to understand what the ops team is saying. So there's a small overlap. It is not that the dev need to be expert in ops or the ops suddenly needs to be expert in dev, but it is a blend, and that blend is required. And if you have the ops team, and I said previously that if you have the ops team and if they are doing your build and deployment, then it is not DevOps. But in the last project, me and my team was there as an ops team. Okay, I am by background, I am a developer, but we were there as a ops team. All three people, me and two more engineers, were as an ops team, and all of us are developers basically, but we have cloud experience and we know things. So we could do it, but we never did a build and deployment. Never. We created the system of build and deployment, which happens automatically, and we made the pipelines so easy to execute and gave the right pipelines with the right access to the right teams so that they can do their work. Dev team can do the CI and CD in dev environment. QA can deploy their things into QA environment. Perf team should be able to deploy things in the perf environment, and so on. We made the team enabled to do these things. Okay, at one given day, the whole team of 100 developers did 83 builds in a day and 123 deployments in a day. 3-member team cannot do it, and if we try to do it, we will be the blocker. Okay, and the idea, the why is to increase speed, to cut overhead and to improve quality. If I want to increase speed, the power should be given to all. Power should not be only with us. Okay, so we need to understand this concept. When we are talking about DevOps, it is not only automation, it is also about how we are doing it, who is executing it, how we are saving on the time and the cost, and improving the speed. Right? We created the system, but we are not the users. We created and we handed it over. We didn't say that we will be doing the ops work. We created the pipeline, we enabled the team, and that is how you give it to them. And when they do it on daily basis, it goes down into their muscle memory. It becomes the culture that I own this. If it is not working in dev environment, I know what is not working. I have the capability to debug in the dev environment and find out what is not working. Okay, they used to come to us. It is not that we did the pipeline and we were chilling out. They used to come to us if because of any given reason a deployment is not working, if they feel that they made a change but suddenly that after deployment the change is not visible. Those kind of scenarios we used to debug and help them, but we were not involved into build and deployment. Okay, so the culture part is important. How we do it is important. You cannot expect the developer to do everything, and you cannot expect the operations to know whole application, though we were capable of handling the whole application. But I'm saying that there should be a blend. That is important. So if I go back to the previous question which I used to get, that we used to do it even 8 years back, what is new in this? The new is you make the team capable of doing their things on their own with their speed and their need. You don't interfere, you enable. That is the role of an ops team in DevOps. This is major difference. Okay, you make them go faster, you help them go faster, and you reduce everything using this. Now, generally, this is the simplest DevOps. There are advanced concepts in this which we will talk about later, but this is the journey. We started from doing small things, sophisticated automations, things like that. Now we are talking about this as a culture, this as a inbuilt feature of a team, that they should be able to move things faster. Does not mean they need to be expert, but they need to be supported and enabled. That is how we do DevOps. And again, at the name of DevOps, if you are setting up any process which is slowing down the team, which is creating problems for the team, you can be happy that you are doing DevOps, but basically you are killing the DevOps. So don't do that. Okay, if your team is slowing down because of your processes, because of your style of ops, no, you are not helping. Okay, you cannot do a new thing with an old mindset. You need to change your mindset. Very important. Okay, so take care of this particular point. We will talk about how do we basically kill the DevOps and what are the advanced concepts in DevOps and what we can do, and what I am also trying to do something on that. We are calling it as a data first DevOps. We'll talk about that sometime, but in this session, in this talk, this is the content. So we need to understand what, how, and most importantly why we are doing. Keep that in your mind. That should never change. Thank you.